Swag, the People's Guild. A passion for making monsters. Can't be killed. We breed the best pets, learn a lot, no regrets. Join us in creating excellence. Purple on our back, Mythic Squad on the chest.
What's up, everybody? Here for another short educational video. In this one, we are going to talk about hero stats, just to give you a brief overview of what those are. There's a lot of information in this game, so breaking it down into chunks. All right, so let's see here. I pulled up my heroes in my game just to kind of show some. Let's talk about the front at first. You have your warrior level 11, right? This is your primary class and your subclass. Your primary class only really comes into play it is the only one that matters for PvP, PvE, etc. The subclass is not used right now. It's only really used for leveling up. Speaking of which, you also have your level over here and your generation. Now, your level is kind of how tough they are when they're building these PvE, PvPs. They're going to be geared towards a certain base level. So it's important to make sure that you've got a level hero that's strong enough to be able to compete, not just in level, but also with the stats on the back. And we'll talk about that once we flip the card over. Next, you have your generation 0, which is just how many generations away from generation 0 it is. Not a big deal. Doesn't come into play for PvE or PvP. But when it is being utilized for summoning, it does come into play. Generation 0s have unlimited summons. Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3 have a maximum of 10 summons on down. And that changes each time you do a summon with them. Speaking of which, here we have our summons. And if you notice, you hover over stuff, it gives you a fun little pop-out. But here on summons, this shows as infinite because you have a maximum amount of infinite on a generation 0. Your stamina goes up every level, right? Well, not every level, but it goes up when you level up. And this is your ability to perform actions in the game, whether it's going on a PvP hunt or going on profession quests or gathering quests, etc. In time, I'm sure crafting will probably consume stamina, but we aren't there yet. Unless you're watching this a few weeks from now, then maybe we are. XP, these heroes go up in level. That's right. The more you play with them, the more you do with them, the higher level they get, the stronger they get, the better they get, more awesome is unlocked. So definitely make sure you're playing with those heroes and unlocking them. All right, some other big ones here is your hero ID. That's just the number of the hero as well as the realm it was born on. You can see this one was born on the original Serendale, and it's hero number 1693. The two other pertinent stats on the front here are your health, which this guy has 562 health points as a max, and 70 mana. Mana is used when you're using your abilities or casting spells, etc. in PvE, PvP, etc. All right, let's go ahead and flip it over and talk about the back. So in addition to your class, when you're doing PvP, PvE, then one of the other big things is going to be your stats. The third is going to be your abilities, and we'll talk about that in a minute when we get to the genes tab. So here we have stats. Strength. Strength is how much damage you do when you hit. Dexterity is whether or not you're able to hit. Agility, whether or not you're able to dodge, as well as turn order. Vitality, how many hit points you have, and your ability to kind of self-cleanse and get rid of negative debuffs. Endurance also comes into those negative debuffs and getting rid of them, and also plays a role in defense. Intelligence is the primary stat used when leveling up to determine, where in the pool you will be for getting more mana. It's a complicated process. We'll talk about that during level up, but you want a high intelligence when you're leveling up to get more mana. It also comes into play for your magical attacks. Wisdom is your magical attack. It's kind of like strength for magic. How strong your spells are going to be will be dictated by wisdom. And it also comes into play to decide how much mana you get when you level up. It's not as important as intelligence, but it does come into play. Luck, on the other hand, comes into play everywhere. If there is something in the game, luck is most likely somehow involved. For example, when you're doing your gathering profession quests, you're out there hunting for bloaters or Swift Thistle or whatever it is, luck comes into play as far as whether or not you find anything, how much you find, etc. When doing PvE, PvP, it comes into play as in, or to help decide whether or not you score a critical hit. So luck is muy importante in my mind in this game. All right, now if you're only worried about PvE, PvP battle, and the next thing we have here are your active 1 and active 2, passive 1 and passive 2 ability genes. These are not in play yet, but little birdie kind of hinted that they might be coming here pretty soon, sooner rather than later. So we'll go ahead and be looking out for that and talk about it here. Now, there are 8 different basic ability genes you can get, and each one of these, much like the skill codex when you're doing a PvP or PvE hunt, etc., these will be in addition to those, but these are specific to your hero. You can't change them within your class. All right, so those are the big ones for PvE, PvP hunts. Now, for everybody else out there that's a little bit curious, you also have your visual genes. These NFTs are deep, y'all. They are some of the most complex NFTs out there, the most complex to my knowledge, in just how much information is included them. Not only do you have your ability genes, not only can you level them up, not only do your stats go up individually, so 2 level 11s aren't going to have the same amount of hit points. It's all going to come down to the class and the roles for each level up. Visual genes, you have 3 main things you can see: the hairstyle, your head appendage, whether or not you have horns or something like that, or just some crazy ears or little ears, and then your back appendage, whether you have a tail or a big 2-handed sword or maybe some wings or something. The rest of these are all colors. All right. Now, as I said, these are super deep. You have active 1, critical aim, in the dominant slot. Now, if you go back to your high school science class, you have in genetics, you have dominant and you have recessive traits. Well, these, if you go to the active 1 position, you see this card is showing 3 recessive traits, R1, R2, and R3. Right, so that comes into play if you're trying to do some summoning and you want to make sure that you get that hero that has critical aim with a pass-through, checking those recessives and trying to find one that has critical aim in the recessive genes would be great also. Now, this is going to be the most dominant, less dominant, least dominant of the ones showed on the card, aside from the actual dominant, because these are all recessives, right? So when you're rolling to get a new card, you have your dominant comes into play and gives you a percentage. Then your recessive 1, in this case, speed, will come into play, recessive 2 to a lesser degree, and recessive 3 to the least degree. One of the big thing I want to talk about is your growth. You have primary growth and secondary growth. Well, why are there 2 sets of numbers? Well, because you have a primary class and you have a secondary class. Each time you level up, these are the percentage chances that those individual stats will go up on your primary stat growth column and secondary stat growth column. Those are just 2 different ways you can get stats as you level these heroes up to make them even tougher, even stronger, and kick some butts. Now, real quick, let me finish up. If you are looking at these stats, trying to figure out what hero you want to buy for PvE because you want to get into boar hunts or maybe fight some rock box, some key things to keep in mind. With the boars, it goes off of a dexterity of 20 as its baseline. So less than that, you're going to find it harder to hit the boars. More than that, you're going to find it easier to hit the boars. You'll have a higher percentage hit chance. Okay. So I think that is a good little bit of information. I don't want to feed you too much and overwhelm you. I'm going to make a bunch of small videos. That way you can consume it and get the information you need, because that's the way we roll here in Mythic Squad. Mad love, fam. I hope you enjoyed it.